Hello, Professor Jagannathan.
Good afternoon, Rana.
Shukla, do you start the proceedings?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Chattopadhyay Sahab, please.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Rana, good morning.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How are you?
Professor Shukla Bhaduria, I think you can start the proceedings now.
Thank you. Now, good evening to all. I am here to be a part of this. I'm feeling honored to be a part of this 22nd episode of online lectures on founders and major models of India. I'm very fortunate that I'm still alive to pay my homage to my teacher and my supervisor, Professor KANAN. Today is the episode of KANAN GOPAL BAGCHI lecture series. Now, Calcutta is one of the oldest and largest departments in India. And Professor BAGCHI is one of the founders of such PG department with the leadership of Professor S.P. Chatterjee. These two were the pioneers and makers of modern geography in India. Professor BAGCHI was ex-presidential and had its major subject geology. But he has a close contact with Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose, and they together framed out the structure of human geography. Professor KANAN GOPAL BAGCHI was invited by Professor Shama Prasad Mukherjee, the then Vice Chancellor, to join this new PG department in Calcutta University. I, being his student and scholar, came to know in close. So I'm just mentioning some part of his character. As a teacher, he was very sincere, punctual, regular in class, student-friendly, and strict. He used to teach us mountain building theories as that was his favorite subject. As supervisor, he extended his help to all scholars, irrespective of supervisors. He provided us infrastructural facilities. He listened to every scholar's problem with fatherly affection, and he has given all the solution to such problems. At that time, we had a separate scholars' room with separate table, with chair. Even he provided us facet machine for calculation purpose, and I had it from office and kept it for long. He gave every scholar freedom for consulting members of other faculties, of other department, as well as he encouraged every scholar for book reading in order to know the subject thoroughly, as well as to grasp the subject intensively. As head, he was protective, strict, and a good administrator. He performed as head for long. As a person, Professor Bagchi was kind-hearted, very soft-spoken, maintained a low profile in the department for the students as well as for the scholars, very disciplined and firm in determination. In spite of his academic excellence, he never showed off. Personally, Professor Bagchi encouraged me to do my postdoctoral work in the Department of Economics, University of Calcutta, Center for Urban Economic Studies. At that time, I couldn't follow why he's sending me to economics department. Later, he told me, you will have a greater interaction with other disciplines. My selection as a teacher in the Department of Geography, Burdwan University in 90s was by Professor KANAN Gopal Bagchi. So, my deep regards to Professor KANAN Gopal Bagchi, and my all respects to him wherever he was. Thank you all. Now I request Professor Ranjan Basu, former Professor and Head, Department of Geography, former ICSSR Fellow, former Chairman of West Bengal College Service Commission, to give his welcome address. Thank you.
Sir, unmute.
Anit, am I audible?
Yeah, you are very much audible, sir.
Okay. Thank you. It is a great opportunity for me to get involved with such a novel idea in this 22nd session of the platform, Founders and Makers of Modern Geography. And from this platform, we are going to pay homage to our revered teacher, Professor KANAN Gopal Bagchi, who was involved initially in the discipline of geology, we have already learned, and therefrom he shifted his interest to the discipline of geography. Following the example of Professor S.P. Chatterjee, both of these were trying to function from the same department, and at that time it was located in Darbhanga building of College Street. Later on it was shifted to Baliganj Science College, and in that year 1941 was the year when the Department of Geography started functioning under the leadership of Professor S.P. Chatterjee, and later on Professor Bagchi, Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose, they all joined to the department. And the first batch was mainly a teacher's batch. They were teaching in some other schools and colleges. They joined this department as a student, and 1943 was the first batch of students. Regular batch of students, they appeared in the examination in the next year, 1944. And Professor Sunil Kumar Munshi was a alumnus of that particular year, and gradually the ball was set to rolling. And so many persons got involved ultimately in the formation of undergraduate syllabi, in the formation of postgraduate syllabi, and undergraduate started much earlier in Presidency College, and ultimately joining hand in hand, they started their journey. And later on, National Atlas was shifted to a new address, and several ventures were taken. And I got involved in 1968. Somehow, as a student of Presidency College, a symposium was organized at that time as an extension to 1968 IGU. The name of the symposium was confined on humid tropics, and that was held in Ramakrishna Mission Cultural Institute in GOPAL, Kolkata. As a volunteer, I participated that as a student, undergraduate student of Presidency College. And later on in 1971, when I came to join the postgraduate department as a teacher, I found Professor BAGCHI was he then head of the department and also president of the Geographical Society of India. In dual role he was functioning. And he was teaching us geomorphology and geotectonics. And it is from him we learned that we are living in an unstable earth. And after this pandemic phase, we are still learning that we are still going through different phases in this unstable earth, be it physically a fact, be it culturally, socially, and in economic aspects, it is also a fact that we are living in an unstable earth. Mr. BAGCHI in 1968, as a corollary to that 1968 IGU, some papers were collected and published another book on hydel and thermal power and its geographical implications. He edited the book and published. Besides, he was also taking care of the famous journal, which is already there in UGC care list, Geographical Review of India, as you know. It is still running from 1933. And though some backlog is there, it is still running. We are hopeful that it will function very well in near future. And I would be happy to find that in future, not only in Calcutta School of Geography, some other areas of West Bengal also had much exposure to teaching and learning and research in geography. One such organization is Department of Geography, University of Bardwan, and Professor Satyesh Chakraborty, Professor Sunil Munshi, Professor Aurobindo বিশ্বাস. They all came together in 1969 to form that department, founded the department, and ultimately it is still running. And I do hope that in near future, after this episode is over, the organizers would think about this, that Professor Sunil Munshi, Professor Satyesh Chandra Chakraborty, they had great contribution to Bengal School of Geography. So they also deserve much accolade for whatever they have done. It is customary to mention that Professor V.L.S.V. Rao, Dr. V.L.S.V. Rao was the first PhD student of the Department of Geography, University of Calcutta, and Dr. Aurobindo বিশ্বাস was the first PhD awarded in geography in the University of Bardwan. They are the pioneers of PhD level research. And apart from that, just one thing to mention prior to my ringing down the curtain to my welcome address, that not only as a geographer, not only as a colossal gentleman, Professor BAGCHI played his role as a sincere Gandhian. He always were wearing some khadi dress and inspiring all of us to follow suit. And by his example, we are still running our life either as student of geography or as a research worker or as a teacher of geography. And I'm not going to extend my lecture because we are all anxiously waiting for the address of Dr. Srikumar Chattopadhyay, a famous scientist who emerged from Bengal School of Geography and was one of the successful research scholar under the guidance of Professor BAGCHI. And with that delivery of Kumar, I hope we will be able to go back to the reminiscence of such a gentleman, such a person of towering personality in the discipline of geography. So I welcome you all, whoever are the participants, the dignitaries, the students and research scholars. Just listen to Dr. Chattopadhyay's address and we will be able to learn a lot from the life sketch of Professor BAGCHI. And let me ring down the curtain here and let me hand over the microphone to Dr. Bhaduri for rest of the session.
Thank you, Professor Basu. I'm fortunate enough to introduce Dr. Srikumar Chattopadhyay, who is also Professor BAGCHI's student and scholar. Srikumar is a National Fellow, Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation, Thiruvananthapuram, former scientist and head, Center for Earth Science Studies. I request Dr. Srikumar Chattopadhyay to deliver his Professor KANAN GOPAL BAGCHI lecture. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Shukla Bhaduri. I think the screen is visible.
Yes.
Not yet, not yet.
Yes, visible, visible.
No,
but-
not to everybody.
No, sir.
No, not visible, sir.
No, sir, presentation is not visible.
Now is it okay?
Now
it's
it's
okay now?
visible. Yeah, yes, yes, sir.
Yeah,
Chattopadhyay, make a full screen now.
yeah. Is okay now?
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Professor, both the president of the meeting today, Professor Jagannathan, Professor Shukla Bhaduri, Professor Ranjan Basu, Professor Unadar Sharma, Professor Bishambar, Professor Roli Kanchan, Professor Devendra Vishing, Dr. Ambarish Kumar, Dr. Amit Kumar, Dr. Amolkar, and family members of Professor BAGCHI. I have seen Professor Janobi Mukherjee and Kaushik BAGCHI and others of the family. In fact, I feel extremely fortunate that I can pay my homage to my teacher, and Professor Devendra Singh is especially thanked for taking this unique initiative for this program, the founders and makers of modern geography in India. And it's really, it's a great day for me that I'm talking on my teacher and the things which I have learned. And today, what I am today is due to my teacher. So it's a great day for me. Now, it's a very brief biographical details, if we try to put it. Professor BAGCHI was born on 1st December 1918. He was the third son of Professor Dr. J.C. BAGCHI, in fact, who settled in Saraikela. He was a doctor in the court of the Maharaja there. From there, I think in 1939, Professor BAGCHI got his MSc in geology, and then briefly served as a consulting geologist with Tata Group. Then joined the department in 1941. The publication of the Ganges Delta came in 1944. He accompanied Gandhiji in 1946 for Noakhali movement, Noakhali Padujatra. He got married to Anita BAGCHI in 1948, and I'm seeing one of his family photographs here, Professor BAGCHI along with his wife. He got involved in Planning Commission in 1959, assumed headship of the department in 1970. First PhD came under him in 1970. He was the president of Geographical Society of India in 1971 and continued there for a long time, almost 18 years. He had superannuated in 1983. He was the president of ILI, Institute of Landscape Ecology and Acoustics, in 1989, where he continued till his death. And in November, I think he left us, 2001, he left us. Now, what I'm trying to do is that try to really sketch out that how his education started, and from there, how he built up the department, and how a geography tree, if we call it is, has subsequently been built, centering on him, and they are all around. Formal education started in school in Seraikela, which is in now Jharkhand. He moved to Presidency College for college education, and again, university education at the Calcutta University. So once he left Seraikela, he was in Calcutta and never went back. And I think he took Calcutta as his home. After passing out, he got a research fellowship, which is known as the Adhir Datta Research Fellowship. And it's a very interesting story that once he told me that there are 2 applicants for this fellowship, and the fellowship has an amount of 150 rupees in those days. So Professor S.P. Mukherjee, Shamaprasad Mukherjee, the then Vice Chancellor, called both the students and told, I have 1 fellowship and there are 2 candidates and both are successful candidates. What should I do? Then he told, okay, I divide the fellowship among you. But he enhanced the fellowship amount to 100 rupees each. So there are 2 scholars who actually enjoyed the fellowship. His specialized training started on snow survey under James Church, who is International Snow Survey Commission. He's the chairman of the International Snow Survey Commission. He had training under oceanography under E.C. Leford, who is in the US Hydrographic Survey. He has training on soil survey under Dr. N.C. Nag, who was in the Bose Institute. He also has a training on hydrological study under Professor Meghnad Shah and Dr. N.K. Bose. All of us know that Professor Meghnad Shah was in fact, astrophysicist, but he has a tremendous amount of interest in hydrology. And the Damodar Valley Corporation is one of his brainchild, which was the first River Valley Development Project. And Professor BAGCHI was with him on that. So Professor BAGCHI got the training in hydrology from the person of the eminence of Professor Meghnad Shah and Dr. N.K. Bose. Then Professor BAGCHI was, a very close company with Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose, a Gandhian, who was in the anthropological survey. And for the anthropological study, he was in the anthropology department. And Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose acted as a secretary whenever Gandhiji visited West Bengal. In fact, long time he was a secretary, and he has several books on Gandhiji alone. I know there's a different story, but the impact of Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose or Professor BAGCHI's interaction with Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose has given a new dimension to the way the geography has to be taught, the way geography has to be studied, and the research work has to be conducted. Now, in fact, the first thing which struck, if you try to really look into it, Professor Chatterjee was a geologist turned to geographer, Professor BAGCHI was a geologist turned to geographer. And again, we have still the living Professor Bodhanathan, who was in the Walter University. He was also a geologist turned to geographer. Now, what really made Professor BAGCHI a geographer? In fact, what inspired him to be a geographer? Now, if we try to look into, and particularly when I read his reminiscence about Professor N.K. Bose and Professor Sushovan Sarkar, we realize that that in the Presidency College, in those days, in the 30s, in fact, before 30s, I think sometimes in 28, 29, Presidency College started teaching geography in the undergraduate, although it was divided. Part of the physical part of geography was taught in the geology department, and the human part was taught in the history department. And Professor Sushovan Chandra Sarkar was one of the pioneers to teach regional geography. So Professor BAGCHI, when he was in Presidency College, he has a close interaction with Professor Sushovan Chandra Sarkar, because there was an institute for the students, I think Geology Institute. It's a students' organization which enrolled students from geology, geography, history, and other disciplines, those who are interested. And Professor Sushovan Chandra Sarkar was actually vice president of that institute. Professor BAGCHI was, in fact, acting secretary, and subsequently he became the editor, which I'll be talking in subsequently. So there is a close interaction among these people. And Presidency College also had an interdisciplinary environment in that time. Then his close interaction came with Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose. Again, it's a very nice story. Professor BAGCHI was doing field work as a student of geology in Saraikela. And when he is in the field work, he met with Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose, who actually took a group of students there, and he was trying to explain to them the people they are living, how is their food habits, how the type of weapon they use is actually the aboriginals, and how their relation with the landscape, the relation with the water, the relation with the climate. So that fascinated Professor BAGCHI so much so that after he completed his geology fieldwork, he continued with Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose and go on doing the fieldwork. In fact, that produced a paper that will be coming to the second time. Now, so what happened is Professor BAGCHI started developing his interest with the human-environment relationship. And that's a very important field which has emerged today. That is also the time when you see the three stalwarts, D.N. Wadia, J.B. Auden, and W.D. West. And W.D. West was instrumental to start the geology department in the Sagar University. I think we have some alumnus from the Sagar University here. They know very well. These three stalwarts was the Geological Survey of India officials, but they used to participate in the activities of the geography. That time, Calcutta Geographical Society has come in the Presidency College. It was formed in the Presidency College, and these three people, they used to participate. In fact, W.D. West was the editor of the Calcutta Geographical Society journal for some time. Then came Professor Shamaprasad Mukherjee's interest in Professor BAGCHI. He invited him to join the newly established geography department in Calcutta University. And that is a time when he also had the offer from Tata. So he actually left the Tata offer and joined in the department, which just started in 1941 with Professor S.P. Chatterjee taking the lead. And, then the rest is actually what is called that history. His journey as a geographer begins when he joined in the department. Now, Calcutta University Geography Department has another story again. It actually started as a sort of a teacher's training in 1937. And then 1938 BAVSC course started. And the syllabus was prepared by Professor S.P. Chatterjee and Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose together. Then the PG course started in 1941 when Professor BAGCHI joined. That is a time when the faculty members in Calcutta University were actually from different disciplines. They are not, because that time geography has not developed, but geography has become a compulsory in the school, which is again a sort of a handiwork of our Professor Shamaprasad Mukherjee. He put geography as a compulsory subject in the school and then started building this department. So the Professor S.P. Chatterjee, Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose, then Professor KANAN GOPAL BAGCHI, and also the other professors, I think there are professors from BC Law, then the Soil Survey, then the engineering department, all of them joined And they started building the department in Calcutta, which has a very strong, the base, both in the physical side, also is tried to look into the survey, in the cartography, and the map making in those areas. At the same time, a very strong human geography group came out along with what is called that the leadership of Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose. If we move from there, that this is the period, that 1939, when it came out, from there to 1944, these few years, if we try to look into it, we get a very interesting, what is called idea about the work Professor BAGCHI started. His first paper, published in what is called that in Calcutta, in the Calcutta Geographical Review, was on geography of Seraikela. This is the paper which he jointly authored with Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose. Again, recounting Professor BAGCHI's writing, that after the field work, he came to Calcutta and straight away went to Professor Bose's house. And he tried to talk with him. They discussed together, and then they prepared the paper. And then W.D. West that time was the editor, and it was taken. So we can see the sort of the multidisciplinary approach started from the very beginning, and it actually produced the first paper, Geography of Seraikela State. Next year, we are seeing Kalimpong, its land and people. So he was in the Jharkhand area. Seraikela is in the Jharkhand. We see the part of the Chotnagpur Plateau, that area. From there, he moved to the Himalayas. Then again, he came back to the Kashwan. It is an ecological study. 1942, he looked into the flood problem. That is the year when there's a devastating flood of Damodar. In fact, Medinapur and the Hooghly, two districts, are completely devastated. 1942, he also spoke about the utilization of the India's raw materials. Being in the Chotnagpur and also a short stint with the Tata Group, he had seen the use of the iron steel and the coal and all those sort of the raw materials for the industrialization. So he has also looked into this one. 1943, he took up the food problem. Many of us, in fact, those in the West Bengal, they remember very vividly the famine in West Bengal. In fact, Amartya Sen's work on the famine, in fact, earned him the world reputation in those days. It was a new interpretation, the way the famine was there. It is basically man-made because most of the things in the food stuff were stocked by the British for the Second World War, and it created a tremendous amount of a problem. At the same time, there's a drought incidents, so it actually created a havoc. In fact, on famine in West Bengal is one of the very the turning point, even in the social science research, in the social movement, and so other type of things to try to look into it. So he immediately, Professor BAGCHI immediately responded. This was a contemporary problem, and he responded with a paper which is called actually the food problem in India. The next year papers was the Aboriginals again. Living in Seraikela, he has seen those people and he has an idea, straight away idea from them, first-hand idea, and so he really wrote of that. I just put this one because from 39 to 44, in 5 years, he's actually treating with the different subjects which are extremely important for geographers. Disaster management, flood problem is a problem today. We are all handling. Industrial raw material is a problem today. Food problem we have sorted out, but then there are disparity, there are inequality. We have a large section of the people, they really don't get the, what is called that, the square meal in 2 times. There are problems. We know that, although we are food self-sufficient. I'm amused to refer to this one once again, because one of the seminars in Assam, in Guwahati University, when I was just started this way back in 1984, in fact, 84, when India has become food self-sufficient, and I raised the question that India has become food self-sufficient, but there are disparity and people are not getting the food. What geographers are doing? I was surprised to listen to one of the geographers that even if it is there, geographers have nothing to do. That time, I did not know that Professor BAGCHI has written a paper on food problems in India in 1943. I came back to Calcutta and started talking about this, and then I understand. So the question is, responding to the contemporary issues is one of his biggest forte. And that's the challenge he actually took it up. So in 5 years, the type of papers which is producing that tells us the type of coverage and the type of approach what he is going to follow, and that he has followed for the rest of his life. Yeah. In 1944, he started talking on the, I think his book came on Ganges Delta. Now, I will be dealing with this book a little bit because there are very interesting things there. His interest on Ganges, I think, started when he moved to Calcutta. He has the intensive field work from the apex of the delta to the delta front. We can see here young Professor BAGCHI is, in fact, he is rowing a boat in the delta front in the Sundarban areas. He collected the data from the, the landform, hydrography, hydrology, landscape morphology, population, land use, agriculture, mapping. Once I had the opportunity to visit his house, and he told me to take out a trunk from one corner of the room. And when I opened that one, and the type of maps which I've seen, I was amazed. The type of map he has prepared in those days. And, we know that mapping technology was very, very primitive in those days. It's working in the field and setting up all those things, even if you don't have the opportunity for all the area. That is the time when the work started working. He had made an extensive review of the literature. And then he has also what is called that taken care of the socio-cultural and the religious texts when he built up his ideas, when he built up his theory. His attachment to Ganges was so intensive and emotional that he named his first daughter as General. We are fortunate that he is present today and, attending our meeting. I consider the Ganges Delta a classic in geography literature. In fact, when I reread it a couple of months before, I got so much insight. I'll come to that. First, if we look into it, H.K. Spate and Leonard, when they compiled their book, Geography of India, which is one of the most authentic books till today, they observed, when they're talking about the delta, no purpose would be served by reviewing them here. This has been done by BAGCHI, and on the whole, his delimitation and subdivision appear valid and in fair conformity with Strickland's distinction between the area of transcendent deposition, the delta, and that of corrosion, the paradelta. And Strickland is the father of delta. In fact, he has given the nomenclature of the delta. Till today, we could not get a better interpretation of the delta than which Professor BAGCHI put. And why I really put it in the classic, it is named the Ganges Delta. Fortunately, it has been reprinted again in 2005, thanks to, again, family members of Professor BAGCHI, that it was made available. I had one of the original copies, which was published in the Calcutta University, which I got when I was a research scholar under him. Now, why I really consider it as a classic, I'll be coming to that. First, I put, is this book a book of geomorphology or physical geography or geography? There are three selected quotes. I took it from Professor BAGCHI. The first thing is, he's writing an introduction. Greater stress has been laid in the present work, however, to the dynamics of the Ganges Delta, but this has been to emphasize how it has influenced the nature of the distribution of population in it in the last 50 years. So he's actually talking about the dynamics of the Ganges Delta to find its influence on the population distribution. Sounds very familiar in today's context. how really, I know, the physical process, how really they affect. The second quote, study of the character of the rivers provide key to the ecological conditions. Apart from the physical elements, there are also socio-political factors that enter into the consideration of the ecology. Some of my colleagues, some of the, the people present in the August gathering, perhaps they are getting the idea. The socio-political factors that enter into the consideration of the ecology. Again, I'll be elaborating that one subsequently, and determine ultimately the nature of distribution of population confines. Third one, in the present work, only physical elements have been considered, and an attempt at the correlation of these with the nature of the distribution of population in 50 years has been made.
Hello.
Future works might be directed
Hello.
to... Hello? Directed, including the growth and operation of capital in urban areas. How the capital in urban areas really works, that's a very important thing. And he tried to really find out how the human adjustment to the natural environment goes. And that's the one of the greatest thing which he really propagated and taught, that human is adjusting with the nature of environment, and the nature of these adjustments find in the pattern, geographical pattern displayed by the distribution of the population. So if you try to look distribution of population or the population as a proxy variable, then you understand what is happening. If we interpret them, the first one, we see that is a sort of a social ecological systems analysis, which got popularized in 1970s. The second one, you try to look into it, the rivers, which is the key. So the ecological conditions can be meaningfully investigated by analyzing conditions of the river. Drainage basin security as a key to livelihood security, again got importance from the 1990s. He's talking about 40 years before. The role of socio-political factors in ecology. There's a political ecological concept, again got popularized in geography in 1980. Growth and operation of capital in urban areas that impacted population distribution. Now, how the role of capital formation in the social geographic analysis became again popular in 1970 and 1980. If we try to look into the sort of a capital formation, the urbanization, many of us may remember The City and Social Justice by David Harvey. How the capital formation, capital accumulation affects or impacts the urbanization has been spelled out in that. So if we really put this one in a larger perspective of the science in geography, we see that he's transcending Darwinian's heritage of deterministic approach. He's crossing that one and assimilating what is called that Patrick Gates and French school of regionalization. Also, he stepped into the Marxian concept of capital formation, how that is physically, spatially expressed in the urbanization. And then he's focusing on his fieldwork and regional studies. The book is so loaded. Every line conveys something. What is called that, he knew the economy of words. And he knew the word, how to really place it in such a way that with a minimum writing, he conveys a very great thing. And that's the thing which we missed. When we first studied read the Ganges Delta, we missed these finer points. It took me for a long time to understand these dimensions, and that's why I put this book as one of the classic literature in geography. Now, 1942, Quit India movement started. All the Congress leaders were put into the jail. Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose, the professor in the anthropology department and social geography in Calcutta University, also in the jail. Professor BAGCHI, I think it was by design that some of the people, they actually have not been directly, so that they are in the jail. So he's linking with the persons in the jail and outside. 1943-45, he took part in the Indian National Congress Constructive Workers Forum. And that is the time when the political parties straightway get involved into the flood analysis. Like as a part of the Indian National Congress program, he is looking into the flood analysis of the Midnapur and the Hooghly, and for which he again produced a paper before that. So this issue, the burning issue of the society, which has become a part of the political party's agenda during that time, which now we very seriously miss, that the political party's agenda does not take place on the normal problems, which does not fetch them the vote. Then the riot broke out. The Noakhali riot broke out in 1946, and we are seeing here Gandhiji is moving. In fact, he is crossing a canal, and just behind him, Professor BAGCHI. So he accompanied Gandhiji in Noakhali and spent all the time, 6 months. There is a time when he started spinning wheels, charka. He's also helped Gandhiji in publication of Harijan, a journal which Gandhiji established. He's also, one of the duties was to post letters. Gandhiji used to write letters every day. And the post office were not in every village. And if you see in the Noakhali, the type of landscape in Noakhali, it is not, the communication was not so easy. So he used to walk. Virtually, he has to walk daily 5 to 6 miles. 5 to 6 miles means 7.5 to 8 kilometers. He used to walk and post the letters. And this was a routine. And when Gandhiji was moving from one village to another village, he is moving with him and he is participating in all those. And that has given him an enormous knowledge about the rural area, which subsequently, again, he translated in some other activities. The charka he used that during that time is now exhibited in the National Charka Museum in New Delhi. That's one of the the good thing that from the family they can take pride of it, that the charka used by Professor BAGCHI was exhibited in the National Charka Museum in New Delhi. After India won independence, his journey resumes on the department. He was so unassuming the person is very slowly and quietly came back and is the department, started looking into this one. Immediately after independence, the DVC project formed with Professor Meghnad Shah and Professor S.P. Chatterjee taking the lead. Professor BAGCHI got involved, and that time he started looking into the River Valley projects of More, Koshi, Pallavaram in Andhra Pradesh. All these projects means River Valley projects has become one of the important thing, and River Valley planning. That is the thing which is he concentrated. 1950s was a decade of action in geography. The National Atlas Organization formed in 1956, and it formed initially in Darbhanga building in Calcutta University Geography Department. So Professor S.P. Chatterjee was extremely busy with those communications and taking this organizational work. So the department is actually manned by few people, and Professor BAGCHI was one of the leading persons. I do not know. Many of you might have read. When Delhi School of Economics completed their 50 years, they brought out a book. It has very luminaries. Amartya Sen was there, Manmohan Singh was there, Jagadish Bhagwati was there. But they are all within a higher plane. They are participating in the World Bank project, they are participating in the UN, they are participating in the government in the program. But the people silently running the department. One of the person was B.N. Ganguly. I happened to meet him, in fact, got acquainted with his son subsequently. One of the, again, very silently was Professor K.N. Raj, with whom I had a personal interaction. So, when the department has to run, that has to be run very silently, because there is a regular classes has to go on, regular students has to be produced, and there's activities. So, Professor BAGCHI silently took part on those. Although he was part of the whole, the process of DVC planning. So his teaching and research continued. He started his publication in the physical as well as human geography. Rivers and associated problems becomes the main focus of his studies. And after some time, he is always with the national issues, looking at the planning problems, local level analysis. And his study area spread on West Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Himalayas, even in Australia. And of course, Bangladesh is there. And even in in part of the Australian plan. He was examining once the Australian plan, how the Australian plan is being prepared, because he was deeply involved in the planning process in India. His research papers are many, but which you can really collect so far, it goes more than 65. There's one book, there's the Ganges Delta, edited volume 4. The research reports, again, there are 4 research reports. He has convinced very strongly in integration. He believed in industrialization and transformation of rural area, understood the limitations of village economy. Again, I recollect a short story during the time when I was a student. In one of the seminars, in fact, a couple of us were raising the issue that to develop the village, keeping it as a village. He very strongly, in fact, reacted. He told it's not possible. You have to transformation. Technology has to go in, industrialization has to come. Amenities has to come there. So the type of emotional attachment with the village, unless and until we come out from that one, and then it is difficult for the village development. If we read subsequently, when Professor M.S. Swaminathan, agricultural scientist, he told that agriculture has to be thought of as an industry, not as just like a culture, as a profession, as a sort of like a daily work. It has to go, there should be a sort of a industriousness within the agriculture. The same thing was spoken by subsequently our APJ Kalam, our president, when he tried to tell that Pura providing urban amenities in the rural area. Change, transformation, he used to believe on that. So when what happened is, so he was actually getting these things more and more convinced, leading the department, so much so the period he was actually head from the 70 to I think 83. So UGC assessed the department 68 to 1982, and they have given very special assistance, Center for Special Assistance based on the performance of the department. So during his headship, I think all the weight is actually a testimony that his headship, the type of work done in the department during his headship were well appreciated at national level. He was also teaching in the other departments. The felicitation volume, which has been brought out by Professor S. Mukhopadhyay, again, one of his students, had 105 articles all over the world. It is something great. In fact, if we really try to take that nowadays, 20 articles makes a volume. It's a 5 volume. So that actually talks about the type of interest and the respect he commanded from all the geographers. He was a technical advisor to the Planning Commission. He was working with the Maulana Vish. Those who are familiar with the Maulana Vish formula, Maulana Vish model of development, again, it is with those in the industries. And then he, in fact, the second 5-year plan was entirely adopted by him. He also, Maulana Vish also believed in the spatial planning. So he got O.H.K. Speth and Leonard as a part of the Colombo plan to work with the planning board, which was the Planning Commission of India, and then got Professor BAGCHI and a group of people, again, Professor S.P. Chatterjee, and there is a group of people. So the work on Damodar Valley, in fact, started, and that started for a long time. In fact, it started from 59 to 63, and then up to 68 to bring out all the research reports and the volumes. There's a regular seminar, symposia, and projects. In fact, IGU 1968 is, I think, the first and the last IGU till today, when Professor S.P. Chatterjee was the president of the IGU. In fact, he organized like a hydro and thermal power and its geographical implications in developing countries. So he was always considering the developing countries surrounding in the, their development, not the country alone and the issue they are facing. There are several projects, again, on Damodar Valley, diagnostic survey, regional analysis, integrated study, eco-development study. And in the eco-development study project, he has an interaction with T.N. Session, that time our environment secretary, who is very famous, you know that. In fact, after the project was completed, he, in fact, not only sent a very congratulatory note to him, also allowed him to take up some more work with the money available with the department in those times. And he had, with all the funding agencies like UGC, ICSSR, but the more important that Geological Survey, Port Commissioner, River Research Institute, Statistical Institute, IIT, the Regional Science Association, all these other associations got involved, which Shukla Bhadur initially telling, that interacting with the other departments, that was a very important thing from him. He started in the student days as an editor. Then he actually, he was the associate editor in the Science and Culture magazine established by Professor Acharya Prafulla Chandra Ray. We all know that, and Professor Meghnad Shah. Then, of course, Geographical Society. I think in his time, from Calcutta Geographical Society, it became the Geographical Society of India. And he was also sometimes, and then the president. He was the president for almost like 18 years, then vice president and the president of Delhi. His presidential address, which I looked into, and I was amazed to really, the study and analyze them. The first presidential address in 1971 was an agricultural problem. We had the food shortage. We know that PL 480, what all those things are happening in India. So he was with contemporary. He started looking into the thoughts of planning, geography, how the social application can be done, geography research in the university setup. Each of these items is his presidential address subsequently. In fact, I wish that I will compile all the presidential addresses and make a reinterpretation, sort of restudy them and revisit them and make a separate book on that. He also talked about the role of Geographical Society and journals in national development. You will be surprised. You'll be surprised. Very recently, in fact, I was a little bit involved on that. The academician's social responsibility has become one of the very talking points. And this year, in 1922, the last semester in Harvard University, they started a course which is called that academic social responsibility. He's talking about that in 70s, that how the professional society, journal, their role in national development. For that, next year he is talking about the restructuring of the geography syllabus. And the restructuring is from the secondary school to the postgraduate level, which we talk now. That unless and until there is a linkage from the secondary school to the postgraduate level, our syllabus may not be, the products which are being out may not be really appropriate. He talked about the systems approach in geography in early 80s. I think it was, if I remember very correctly, in fact, it is 78 or 79. In fact, I was still in the department this time. Systems approach in geography, we still talk. And he was actually introducing. So all these themes, he started introducing. He talked about unstable art and environmental challenge. He talked about the environmental scenario of the India and the adjacent countries. Because we cannot, because as our geopolitical situation and the type of linkage which we have with, we cannot think our environmental preservation in India alone. We have to talk about the surrounding countries and bring them together. He's talking about the panchayat and the planning, when our panchayat became a part of the planning only in the 1992, 93. And of course, River Valley development was all the time. The legacy of Professor BAGCHI, if we try to look into it, research and the non-research stations. In general, he has more than 20 scholars who got the PhD. But the topics that he had given to the students varies from the soil, land productivity, pediment geomorphology, hydrology, ecological studies, land use, water balance, urbanization, population mapping, transport, industry, recreation potential, regional analysis, socioeconomic survey, interrelationship between the physical environment and the population. A wide range. See, as a geographic, the type of coverage, it has a core, it has a periphery, and how it is getting linked with all these. So he tried to put his students in the different of these and try to examine what is really happening and opening a new area for his students. Taking him as the core, if you look at tree and geography, more than 150 academicians and professionals today throughout the world. Students, like this, like Professor Ranjan Boshu, in fact, one of his students, PhD student. Several of those, and they are now all over the world. My personal experience, I count in 3 items as a student. As a student, what I learned from him, that to take decisions and provide leadership. When we are talking about the students, and also when you try to he used to take the students in the confidence for his lectures, in class lectures, in the discussion. That I learned from him. As a research fellow, I learned from him to think independently. finding solutions to the problems by our own. He never spoon-fed us. He always tried to tell, okay, look, search in the library and try to look into that one. He also taught us to respect difference of opinion, because it's a gray scale. It's not always the black and white. And there can be a completely separate, different opinion, which has to be really respected and put into it. He also trained us for integration and regional analysis. Try to look into regions and also try to understand what is the importance of the integration. As a professional, I learned so many things. One is the unbiased approach in research. And the research should be useful to the society. He was always talking about the geography in the service of the society, which we talk now. To understand the boundary conditions and the limitations of the subject. That what is the limitation? What is your boundary condition? Where you can go and where you have to go to other disciplines. Not that geography can do everything. You can do certain things, we cannot do certain things. And that should be a multidisciplinary approach and a broader perspective. In fact, in my entire career here in centers, I followed that. Also to take responsibility and care as a convener and organizer. Again, permit me to tell a short story here. In one of the seminars in Calcutta, it has so happened that some paper was very much criticized that they are not conforming to the theme. Professor BAGCHI, in fact, reacted sharply and told, when we have accepted all the papers, we, the organizers, feel everything is relevant. That's a very important thing. The second thing is, in fact, he extended the session the next day to accommodate the participants, which I learned in a very hard way in one of the premier organizations, in fact, IIT, one of the IITs, I'm not telling the name, but one of the IITs in India. I went to make a presentation, and I was told to make the presentation for 2 minutes just to accommodate a foreign delegate, because he was participating in the meeting. He liked to go to a field visit to a part of a city. And a couple of us were amongst, and we had to protest. So what should be the responsibility of a convener and the organizers when they invite the people or organize a seminar? To give them respect, to give them the time, to value their paper, not to discount them. Third, last thing what I talk about that I learned from him, care for the students and scholars. Whenever I visited, it was always, again, the type of work which I'm doing. And he is providing an input. Look into this way, look into that way. So he was actually open. He was open, and we can approach him and we can talk to him at whatever be the things long time after we left the department. He is a humanist geographer. I consider as a humanist geographer, he has deep concern for people. He's always applying his research results for the benefit of the larger society and address the real world problem. He believed in traditional ethos with a modern outlook. He was a liberal educationist and Sarvodaya Shiksha that he used to talk about. He was very much respectful to the people with whom he worked. He wrote about Meghnad Shah, he wrote about Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose, he wrote about Professor Shushovan Sarkar, and in the 75th birthday of our Professor S.P. Chatterjee, he organized the program. That time I was a research scholar in the department. And we had the type of respects which was to be paid to the line of geography, like Professor S.P. Chatterjee, was all done. He was a very internationally respected teacher. He's a nationalist. He shunned all publicity. He's a very down-to-earth and very unassuming person. And he was always true to the ideals of Bapu. He used khadi. We have never seen him other than khadi. And he was very, very unassuming person, soft-spoken. And it's like a true disciple of Gandhi. Although he has his differences with Gandhi's, some of the ideas, which we discussed from time to time. It's a brief family tree. He has 2 daughters and 1 son. Professor Jahnavi Mukherjee, in fact, who is present. I think some of these members are present today, and their son and their granddaughter, and then Mr. Vashabi, unmarried daughter, and then Kaushik BAGCHI. Again, he has 2 daughters, so these are 2 sons. These are his family tree. With this, thank you very much. I have taken a little more time, but then, Professor, I think it is like go on talking on Hindi. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chattopadhyay, for such informative and heartwarming bar sketch of Professor Kanan Gopal BAGCHI. Now I request Professor Anuradha Sharma, who is the Professor and Head, Department of Geography, University of Jammu, for her comments. She is our special guest.
Hello. Am I audible to all?
Yes. Yes, audible.
Okay. It's my honor and great privilege to be here today at this platform, wherein I am in the company of the great geographers from the different parts of the country, and I thank the organizers to have given me this opportunity to listen to such a great geographer from from a very old university, especially where the Department of Geography was established in pre-partition India, and the foundations have been so strong that from geology, the journey to geography has been very interesting of Professor Kanan Gopal BAGCHI. In fact, though I have never had an opportunity of visiting that department, and I did not know much about him, but definitely I had heard about his contribution in geography, and especially from the physical field, the kind of connection that he has made with the human geographical study, the human environment relationship, which is the core of the human geography nowadays, and it all got established, and then it got nurtured under the aegis of Professor BAGCHI. It was really, very, I would say, very inviting and a very captivating talk by Professor Chattopadhyay, who has given such detailed analysis of the work which has been given by Professor BAGCHI. This 22nd episode of the lecture series has been one of the best, the reflection of the series that we have had so far, and his contribution not only in the field of geography but in the field of Indian independence, and especially in the field where the geographers need to focus upon, that is the interaction with the rural area, and the people from the rural area, and all the way traveling so far every day, and getting connected to the people, and trying to establish geographical, social geographical facts so well, so that it enriches the subject much more. And then, of course, as has been very clearly indicated by Professor Shukla Bhaduri and Professor Chattopadhyay, his contribution has been very enriching, immense, and something that needs to be, assimilating as long as the scientific component of research in geography is concerned. So, with all these words, I would like to thank the organizers once again, and I would like to thank all the doyens of geography who are present here today on the virtual platform for having me here. Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Professor Sharma. Now I request our guest of honor, Professor Vishwambar Prasad Sati, Professor and former head, Department of Geography and Resource Management, Mizoram University.
Thank you, Professor Shukla Bhaduri ji, for inviting me to have a comments on this very, very important lecture delivered by Professor Sri Kumar Chattopadhyay. I also acknowledge my thanks to the organizers of these 22nd episodes of founders and makers of geography in India. So far, I did not know about Professor KANAN Gopal BAGCHI ji because I don't have any idea about him. But I know about the Kolkata University and some of the scholars working from Kolkata University, and some they have already completed their work and they got retirement. Many of them I know. So the way Professor Sri Kumar Chattopadhyay has delivered about Professor KANAN Gopal BAGCHI, I was very much enlightened, and what I have observed that this Professor BAGCHI was actually a multidisciplinary scientist, as he has supervised more than 20 PhD scholars on different themes, from population to ecology and geomorphology and like this. So I am very much impressed on Professor BAGCHI and also the way Professor Sri Kumar Chattopadhyay has delivered this. And this is also the need of ours now, that because of this interdisciplinary nature, yes, it is there in geography also, but we have to go also in a deep towards the interdisciplinary nature of geography. And then I learned lots of things out of these presentations. And yes, and then what this also, the founders and makers of geographers in India, they are also doing lots of good work. And then in future also, if we think something more about this and some more lectures on this, we can also impart the same training to the new coming generation of geography in terms of this all interdisciplinary approach in geography. And I will not take much time of you, and thank you all of you for inviting me, particularly Professor Shukla Bhaduri ji. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sati.
Ma'am, if I'm
now I request our distinguished guest, Professor Roli Kanchan, Professor and former head, Department of Geography, MS University of Baroda, for his comments.
Madam, if you kindly permit me to leave with the permission of the chair, I have another assignment right now, so I may kindly be permitted to leave.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Then our next is chief guest, Professor Dr. Jagannathan, Chairperson, School of Earth and Atmospheric Science, Professor and Head, Department of Geography, University of Madras. I request him.
Madam, 1 minute, madam. One correction, madam. Madam Roli Kanchan.
Let me say a few lines, and then Professor Jagannathan can follow me up. Professor Bhadri. Professor
Okay,
Bhadri.
you start. Okay, ma'am, you start. Then we will go for the next one.
Good evening, everyone. And it's my honor to be here. And Professor President Professor Vedya, Professor Bhadri, Jagannathan, Anuradha ji, Sati ji, and last but not the least, Professor Chattopadhyay. This lecture series, not only the 22nd, but till now, whatever series I have been a party to it, I should thank Dr. Devendra Prasad and his team for making us connected with the stalwarts of geography. In fact, maybe we are also not knowing about them so much, and with the coming generations, they would have been forgotten, or they might have been in some corner at some place. Say, for example, Professor BAGCHI would have confined himself to the eastern part of India. Professor Ramesh might have been confined to the southern part of the India, and so on and so forth. But with this platform, there are two major advantages. Those archives, the stalwarts, the dons, and why we are here, we come to know about them, and at the same time, we can pass on this legacy to the younger generation who would not even know what we are knowing about them a little. Thank you, everyone. And with these words, I once again thank Professor Devendra Prasad ji and his team, and all my good wishes for him to carry on this founders and makers of geography in India. Thank you, Professor Madhuri. Now I hand over the mic to you.
Thank you, Professor Kanchan. I'm a bit sorry because I didn't understand.
No issues because Anuradha ji came in between, and that is why you missed it. No issues at all. Please carry forward.
Now I request our chief guest, Professor Jagannathan, Chairperson, School of Earth and Atmospheric Science, Professor and Head, Department of Geography, University of Madras, to give his comments.
Good evening, everybody. Very good evening. So, respected Professor Chukla Baduri, former head, Department of Geography, University of Calcutta, Professor Vaidya, former head of the Department of Geography, University of Pune, and former professor in JNU, Secretary General of Deccan Geographical Society, and Professor Anuradha Sharma, head of the Department of Geography, Jammu University, Professor respected Roli Kanjana Madam, MS University of Baroda, and Professor Vishwakar Prasad Sadi, Professor and head of the Department, former Geography and Research Management of Mizoram University. And I have to thank Professor Ranjan Basu, my friend. I guess a very good welcome address he gave about the university, then about the professor. And really speaking, Professor Dr. S.K. Chattopadhyay has given very good lecture. And I know him. He worked as a resource scientist in Thiruvananthapuram Center for Earth Science Studies. And he contributed so much, and his excellent lecture really gave so much of information about Professor Kanan. Really. Because southern part, we don't know about this. And really, I understand today his contribution. So really, he contributed so much in the field of physical geography, as well as, human geography. And his contribution, I think we have to remember, and we have to publish some special volumes about Professor KANAN Gopal Boghi, former head of the Department of Geography, University of Calcutta. And I think this is one of the oldest universities in India, like Mumbai University and Madras University, and they started in 1941. From 1941 itself, he has been contributing so much in the field of geography. Really, sir, thank you very much, Dr. Bandha. You will give really excellent picture within an 1 hour. I really enjoyed actually, okay. And this Sunday, really we got really good information. And Professor Rodishkan Madam told, and we are really very happy, and really very happy, and we have to tell everything about our great professor, what they have contributed to the field of geography. And we must tell really, so that our young teachers, young scholars, our geographers, they have to understand what is the role of these great geographers. I request the organizers, I think I also contribute, I will help you. We have to bring some special value into all great geographers, whatever they contributed till now, because that is
Professor
very important.
Jagannathan, they are bringing.
Yeah, thank you.
Professor Jagannathan, they are bringing.
Thank you, madam. So including.
That is in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, because our Professor Ramesh here and many professors really they contribute in different fields. And now we are here, madam. If any help, definitely from University of Madras, we will be able to contribute whatever you want. And so that we will be able to bring a really very good volume about the great geographers. Because when we talk about geography, or when we teach geography thought, really I am telling, we don't have the contribution of Indian geography. We don't have really good book, good resource. I think when we are going to bring this, definitely we have to include in our curriculum, whether it's a BSc or MSc, geography thought, particularly Indian geographers. What is the role of Indian geographers in different fields of geography discipline, maybe social geography, human geography, now geospatial tech, so that we'll be able to show everything to other people. And now geography is like a technological subject. We all here and we have to teach everything, whatever their contribution, including the planning. Professor Mishra, he contributed so much. Professor Mishra, Sundaram and Prakash Rao, like that, we have to discuss. And I have to thank the organizer, Professor Devendra Prasad, for bringing all of us here on Sunday. And this is the 22nd episode of online lecture series. And really great contributions, sir, you are giving. And we are able to meet virtually. We are able to connect. We are able to interact, And this is a really good and very good meeting. I think every month, whatever they are doing, that is excellent job. And whatever we are able to do, I think we will be able to contribute. With this, I thank everybody. And I particularly thank Devendra Prasad sir for giving the opportunity to take part of this very great online series. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Jagannathan. Now I request our intercessor, Professor Devendra Prasad Singh, Director of Researches, IRAD, Patna, Vice President Nagi, for announcement, if any.
Thank you, madam, very much. And good evening to starbursts of geography from all over the country, from every part of the country, right from the south down to the north, and from Cuttack to Wattak. A galaxy of leading geographers of the country are here, and I am very happy to pay my obligation to respect to all of you. Sirs and madams, as you know that on the occasion of our first anniversary, on the 26th of last month, we have announced 10 action groups, and senior professors from all over the country, we are gladly accepted to convene each of our such 10 action groups. All the 10 action groups were announced and formed during the 1 year's advice from starbursts of geography of our country, like B.K. Srivastava Sahab, S.N. Pandey Sahab, A.V. Bhagwati Sahab, Pant Sahab, Rana Pratap Sahab, Sati Sahab, all have advised to form some action groups, and we formed 10 action groups, and 2 more action groups are to be formed. 11th action group will be convened by Professor S.N. Pandey, Professor and Head, former Professor and Head Geography, T.N. Bhagalpur University. He will be organizing an action group known as Geography of Peace. And the 12th action group will be convened by our 2 scholars, one Professor Ganesh Kumar Pathak Sahab and another Professor Sardanand Chaudhary. And this action group will be named as the disaster management group. And on the 17th of this month, that is the next Sunday, we are going to organize meetings of two of our action groups. One action group led by our respected Professor VP Sati Sahab. The name of the action group is Mountain Study. And Professor Sati Sahab will inform us on the next Sunday about his planning regarding to his action group, that is Mountain Studies. And second action group led by Professor S.N. Pandey of Bhagalpur University will also be convened on the 17th of this month. And the name of that action group is Gandhian Study. And Professor Pandey will present the planning, what he will be going to do with this action group. And on 24th of June this month, we will organize meetings of two of our action groups. One action group led by Professor our BK Srivastav Sahab of Gorakhpur University. The name of the action group is Writing of Histories of Geography of Indian University. And he has formed a team of some eminent professors, and he will announce and portray his foolproof plan on the 24th of this month. And another action group will be, whose meeting will be organized on 24th. It will be the preparation of Directory of Indian Geographers. We are also going to prepare the Directory of Indian Geographers. And three persons, very senior persons, Professor Santosh Shukla from Sagar, Professor Kalpana Markande of Osmania, and Dr. Kabir Dhaberkar of Bilaspur. We are presenting their plan. So, meeting of two action groups on 17th of this month, meeting of two action groups on 24th of this month, and the 31st of this month, we will have our special episode on the university, founders and makers of geography in the University of MSc Baroda, University Baroda, and Professor Rauli Kanchan will be delivering the lecture. So, and we are also going to publish our volumes very soon, and we are receiving chapters from most of our speakers, and we are also waiting chapters from remaining speakers. So, madam, these are our program and announcement. Thank you very much. Madam, go ahead. Madam Convener.
Thank you, Professor Singh. Now I request any two eminent participants to give some brief comments. I've seen Dr. Jahnavi Mukherjee. Is she here?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
I request her to say something about her father.
I can only say, Pita Dharmo, Pita Shargo, Pita hi Param Tapo, Pituri Pritima Panne, Priyante Sarvodevata. My heartiest thanks to Sri Kumar. We are overwhelmed by the speech given by Sri Kumar and personally indebted to him. And thanks to all the speakers and organizers. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mukherjee. She is the eldest daughter of Professor KANAN Gopal BAGCHI, and she attached to Women's Christian College. Now I request our President, Professor V.C. Vaidya, former professor and head, Department of Geography, SBP University, Pune, former professor, Center for International Politics, JNU, Secretary General, Deccan Geographical Society, and editor, Deccan Geographer, to deliver his presidential address.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Respected Roli Kanchan, respected Dr. Srivastav, respected Dr. Santosh Shukla, Professor Ranjan Basu, Dr. Sarla Sharma, Dr. J. Jagannathan, Dr. Shukla Bhaduri, Dr. DPC, Dr. Narayan Jana, Dr. Rana Pratapji, Dr. Chattopadhyay, Dr. Sarla Sharma, Professor Tuntun Jha, and dignitaries. As somebody told about the Kanan Gopal's BAGCHI, in fact, I was also not knowing about him too much. And for that, I should thank to the organizers and particularly DP for providing this platform because of three reasons. One reason is that to know something about the old geographers. That is why his initiative to know who were the founder and makers of India. So this is great contribution. And to be frank, the speaker has unfolded many things, right from the education, college education, where he was there, how he think, where he was associated with the Mahatma Gandhi, then how he worked. Again, he joined in the department and he contributed not only one discipline, because basically he was a geologist, but now he changed, turned to the geography, and he has given so many the traits and his behavior, because he was very popular among them, as he told. Sati has also given one point that he was very popular among the students, and he had a great interactive opportunity. As we know that Spade, Legerman, these are the old geographers. We are not knowing. We know them by books, but we had a fortunate that Bagi was lucky to know him. He contributed, he was associated, he did a lot of work. And he never confined his discipline only one part or one branch. He confined his branch to geography, of urbanization, landforms, geomorphology, even geotectonic. And he was not associated with the geography, he was contributing in the various planning part. That is very important. Geography has very least, very rare upon we get to link with the planner, and he was very much related with the planners, how to make a planning of different region. His contribution that I know, somewhere I read about Delta, that is also very well known, and he personality of geography. As just I know, I should thank to the DP6 for bringing such a lecture series by the speaker. Speaker has interestingly has given many more things. If I say that multi-approach person, he was a multi-approach personality. He worked with Mahatma Gandhi, he worked with the eminent geographer, and more important thing that I found that he was a silent worker, he was a silent geographer. He was contributing in many books. We know D.S.C. Mukhopadhyay, but we are not knowing that he edited books, and that is felicitation volume of the BAGCHI. That is new thing to me. So such lectures we are getting addition to our knowledge. We can say this is the great feast to the Sunday, because when we were in the college in a particular hostel, Sunday is good day for we are getting the feast. So this is the feast day that he has given. Even Anuradha, he said that he he was well connected with people. Really, one slide he has shown, speaker has shown, the Mahatma Gandhi and following immediate the BAGCHI and other people. So he was connecting to people. That is very important. And organizers have given, as Roli Kanchan said, that this is the new thing and they are approaching. This is the platform that provided by the organizers. And today I'm very happy. And this is very interesting point has given, which were not knowing by us about the BAGCHI by the speakers. I should thanks to the organizer. I should thank to the Shukla Bhadru. We cannot meet to the everyone everywhere, but this is a platform provided by Dr. Devendra Singh. I should thank you, the Devendra Singh, for giving this opportunity to know the people, to interact, to say hello, at least to say good evening, good evening. So that is very important, because otherwise we cannot go in the Chennai and meet to Jagannathan. But this is a platform. So whenever the lecture season, we can come and we can meet, we can say, we can make a dialogue. And dialogue is very essential nowadays, because this connection is not important, but connection by any modes, that is very important. And this is the good opportunity, I can say the golden opportunity, to know about BAGCHI. Really, whatever he has given the contribution, that will be the history in the geography. And School of Bengalis, if you look as a third person, we are little known from the South India, West India, but really the contribution made by BAGCHI is appreciable, and the work that is undertaken by Professor D.P. Singh in the title of Foundation and Makers of Geography. We had a number of time dialogue with him. Whenever he's coming to Delhi, we spent 1 hour, 2 hours discussing on this one. He has provided a platform to the young people. Otherwise, young people do not never know about the old geographer who contributed, eminent geographer. Nowadays, people are online and they're making this thing, but if you read the thing, their life, the speaker has given every aspect of his life. When he started from Jharkhand, then where he was there, about education, about schooling, about research, about publication, about production as a supervisor. So long back, when there was no situation, when there was no facility, that time also more than 20 ACC produced. He supervised for 22. So these are the great contributions. So I should salute to the great contributor, BAGCHI, who has made the good, great contribution in the field of geography. So he's a really Indian geographer. We have given the direction, not only Bengal, but to the entire country. So it is great achievement by Foundation and Makers of India of the geographers. So I should thank you especially Shukla Bhaduri. So you have given me opportunity to say something about BAGCHI, and I should thank to the organizers who have put my names to say something about BAGCHI. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Professor Vaidya. Now I request Dr. Amol Kaur, former principal scientist and head, Central Arid Zone Research Institute, Jodhpur, to give vote of thanks. Unmute. Aren't here.
Yeah, is it audible now? Okay.
Yeah.
Sincere thanks first to my dear friend Dr. Chatterjee, Sikumar Chatterjee, who asked me a few days ago to be present during his presentation on our beloved professor, Kanan Gopal BAGCHI, and to say a few words during vote of thanks. Well, a tsunami of memories were coming when he was speaking. When I saw and heard my friend Shukla, my friend Ranjan about Professor BAGCHI, and then Sri Kumar about him, I was thinking that yes, I was also a beneficiary of the fatherly love that he used to give to all of us, whether known very well, close or not close, whosoever was his student got his fatherly love. To the extent that the first day I joined the university, I joined a few days, about 2 weeks later than the others joined, and the classes were already on, because I was trying to jump out of Calcutta. It was 1970, very bad period in Calcutta, and I was trying to just jump out. First I went to Burdwan to Professor Satyesh Chakravarti, my teacher at Presidency, and he told me, no, you go back to Calcutta because that stamp is